I don't have your information on 2001. I don't dispute that you're correct in the existing budget. And obviously that's a sizable increase. I'd have to look and see what's driving that. If you give you a card, I will respond back to you. I'll respond back to Mr. Olson and can distribute it to everybody. You know, you've got to take into account if you are running a bunch of chain of stores, you're going to look at your same store sales figures to compare accurately where you stand this year compared to previous years. If you add 2 or 3 more stores, we're going to have more spending, but that's not an accurate comparison. We got more people than we did back then. We have a lot more kids in school. We have a lot more kids in college. The healthcare costs have driven, I'll bet, 60 or 70% of what you just described. And I'm going to the National Governor Association meetings, every governor in the state, in the country, Democrat, Republican, or Independent, is grappling with, as I'm sure you are too, the rising costs of healthcare. We have, right now, we'll have at the end of next year, almost a million Minnesotans receiving some part of their health coverage through a public sector program, in the state or federal. That's almost 20% of the people in the state. A lot of whom couldn't afford to get insurance through any other means. With the health exchange, will open up those doors of opportunity. But we have 200 facilities right now that the Department of Human Services operates for some 85,000 Minnesotans, the elderly and people with disabilities. Those numbers continue to grow. They will continue to grow. So, your point's well taken. You had to look in more detail, and I agree with you. It's my job. I'm not trying to pawn it off on anyone else. I'm just asking people to consider when they toss around words like reform, as you say, like slogans, that we're not just being ignorant of that, and we're not cavalier. I don't know anybody in local or state government who wants to go out and just have a good time spending state public money. It just isn't true. We're all focused on how can we do it better, how can we do it with less. State agencies haven't had a cost. There's been no inflation on the state agency budgets for 10 years. State employees got a 2% raise in January. It's the first raise it had in 4 years. So we're running as tight ship as we can. Can we do better? Absolutely, and we will. But we're conscious of the fact that a lot of factors are driving spending. Yes, sir.
Governor, I just wanted to thank you for facing a tough crowd.
I appreciate you. How's the hockey goalie? I had everybody lined up.
I'm a small business owner. I also happen to run an insurance agency, and I can't tell you how many conversations I've had where they want me to quote insurance for a business over in South Dakota. They're asking on a continuous basis what workers' comp would be in Wyoming, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and other states. They want to move their businesses over there, and I just happen to have a friend of mine who runs a plumbing company that came to me and said that he wants to put up a call center in Sioux Falls, South Dakota because of your tax proposals. On top of that, we keep asking, where can we cut funding? I also happen to have a father that's a judge that keeps telling me every single day he goes to work, there's a conversation of how many new courtrooms they need. And we have a problem basically with 2 aspects. One is the judicial system and the number of people that are incarcerated where you're not getting to them soon enough to prevent $30,000 a year in the penal system. And the second thing is when they come into my office and they're on welfare and they have better health benefits than we have. We're looking at many situations, and then as myself, I may be hit with your tax, and I'm looking at educating 2 children going to college, yet no credit for having to create another taxpayer in the state of Minnesota.
Well, your mind is already made up, and obviously a lot of your colleagues here agree with you. I'm not going to be able to change your mind with the facts. Facts are that Minnesota ranked 15th highest among the states in job growth last year, and South Dakota ranked 44th. Wisconsin, which is, by the way, open for business, ranked 42nd. And those are just the facts. You can't govern by anecdote. I care about every one of those businesses. I care about every one of those decisions. Somebody's going to go elsewhere. That's a concern to me. But I'm looking at the whole picture and what's best for the Minnesotans. And if you think that it's going to be better for the kids that are your kids and my kids and grandkids keep cutting education funding. It just isn't going to be that way, in my view. It's not going to turn out that way. They're not going to have a better Minnesota. They're not going to live in a better country. And some people I know and well off say, well, I send my kids to private schools, private universities, I can afford it, they're going to do well. Yeah, they are. But they're not going to do well overall unless everybody's doing well. If the next 2 generations are going to take over when my generation gets even older, are working productively, 95+% of them, we'll make it. Social Security will be tight demographically, but you'll make it. But if only 85% are working productively and 10% are unemployed and 5% are in prison, we're going to have a wrenching of the social fabric of this country that's going to make what we've seen so far tame by comparison. And I don't want to see it happen in Minnesota. I want to go back to what we've done so well, that's produced overall, not in every instance. You get on the border of Sioux Falls, now we have a bigger problem in North Dakota because they got all the oil and gas revenues. But overall, look at the facts. Minnesota has been a remarkably successful state compared to others, especially those in our vicinity. And if we give up that, if we give up everything that's made this state good, we're not going to ever be the lowest tax state, in my view. We're still not going to be the lowest wage place in the world compared to China and Cambodia. So what do we have? What are our strengths that we need to build upon if we're going to be successful? We're going to continue to be successful and competitive. And my budget reflects my judgment on what that is. Others have a different view. I respect that. That's the great thing about democracy. And we'll see how it turns out.
We have time for one quick final question, ma'am.
Hi, Governor Dayton. Thank you so much. I represent a nonprofit in Alexandria, Minnesota. We take care of over 2,000 seniors. And I want to thank you for being the first governor since Jesse Ventura to actually make a small investment in caring for the elderly. One specific concern that I have, you mentioned unintended consequences, and there is a nurse staffing ratio that's been proposed. And not only would it raise the cost of health care, it would also have the unintended consequence of creating a major nursing shortage, not only for hospitals, but especially on long-term care providers because of the $9 an hour wage difference between the 2 levels of care. It's one of the hardest things that I personally have to do as an administrator in healthcare is to try and figure out how many staff we need to care for our residents, and I would appreciate your comments on that subject. Thank you again for being here.
Well, I brought that legislation to a halt last year, and I said to both sides that one of the ways we have achieved, and we disagree with this, but worker comp rate stability and administrative stability in the last years is there's a business labor council, and it's equally they're 8 business representatives in labor, and they can't advance anything forward in terms of legislation or changes without a majority support, which means they're going to have some business and labor combined. And I think the same principle should apply to this matter as well. Obviously we want hospitals and nursing homes and others to be properly staffed, and there are probably better ways to achieve that than some arbitrary number, which, as you say, does have unintended consequences. And I continue to say that both sides, all sides, work it out. Work it out.